the rest of the space station. It's called Quest. If you're over near the stairs where you came up, that is to your left. So just keep that in mind, and in just a couple minutes, we'll continue walking down the hallway.
Welcome to the Space Vehicle Mock-up Facility. The floor down below us is where astronauts learn how to live and work in space.
This area of Building 9 has the space station mock-ups.
Astronaut Mike Foster points out a few of the training units you can see here.
These are actual training units that we use a lot for crew training. The engineers use these to go in and make sure that new equipment's going to fit when we fly it up to the space station itself. This is actually a working laboratory that you're looking at here. The pieces of the space station are spread about on the floor. Most of them are roughly in the configuration we have in space, but because we're limited to the flat floor, there's some things that are laid out a little bit differently here, but it gives you an idea for the sheer magnitude of all of these elements of the space station. One of the big ones right in front of you is the U.S. laboratory, and inside that are most of the equipment in the racks, just like we have it in space. We use these for training different types of space station procedures. We go in and practice the logistics and what it takes to move things from one end to the other. A little bit over to your left is the space station airlock. I've personally spent hundreds of hours in there as we practice all of the preparation for getting all of our equipment together and getting into our suits to head out the door. This is the one place where we really have everything put together and we can practice just like we're going to fly.
Astronaut Bob Cabana.
The U.S. laboratory connects to Node 1 that connects to the Russian segment of the space station, the functional cargo pod, Zarya, and then the service module, Zvezda. And Zvezda means star, Zarya means sunrise. Node 1 binds the Russian segment of the U.S. segment.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, follow me down to the second stop, please.
Caleb, you okay? Caleb, come here. Stop. No. Come. See that, baby. See that. Let's wait here. Let's wait. Caleb, come here. Let's go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me just mention a couple things as you continue walking down the hallway. Directly in front of us to the glass is what's called the full fuselage trainer, or FFT. This is a full-scale mock-up of the shuttle orbiter, but does not include the wings, as they are not needed for training purposes and will not actually fit inside the building. Across the cargo bay of the shuttle, you'll see a large white pole, sort of cream-colored, cream-colored actually, lying on its side. This is known as the Remote Manipulator System, or RMS. This arm is manufactured in Canada, so it is also known as the Canada Arm. While in space, the astronauts would use this arm to move things in and out of the cargo bay of the space shuttle and attach them to the space station, or move things around on the space station itself, so it's moving objects that weigh thousands of pounds pretty easily. But once they get the arm back down to Earth, they can't even lift its own weight because of gravity. So to help train our astronauts to use an arm like this, we've constructed a larger, stronger working model that we'll see in just a second. Also to the right and behind the FFT are two nose portions of the shuttles, the very front end. These are called the Crew Compartment Trainers, or CCTs. These are rotated into vertical and horizontal positions to simulate launch and landing procedures. The inside of these will be exactly the same as on the actual space shuttle, so the astronauts know what they're doing when they go up and use these things. Okay, if you guys would follow me down to the end of the walkway now.
Oh yeah.
space station.
Did you see that effect? Killer, don't walk ahead of me. No. You're not allowed to do that. Killer, if you're in, you guys are not allowed to walk ahead of me. Sammy, you're making me talk too much. Let's not sit on the floor. Look at that. See how big it is? That's how big. You see the rocket just...
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some audio for this stop as well. Once the audio is done, we're going to go back to the tram. We do have one more stop after this one. When you guys do get back down to the tram, we're going to take up your boarding passes that we gave you guys earlier, the white numbered ones that we gave you at the beginning of the tour. So just get those out, and in a few minutes when we get down to the tram, we'll collect those.
Directly in front of us is an area where the astronauts practice using the highly articulated robotic arms used to manipulate objects in space. It is equipped with a shoulder with a yaw, pitch, and roll, an elbow with a single degree of movement, and a wrist with a yaw, pitch, and roll as well.
The Building 9 station robotic manipulator simulates how we do operations on board the International Space Station. And in order to do that on Earth with the gravity that we have here, we have to use either things like balloons filled with helium, or we use very lightweight equipment that this arm can push, and we usually use wheels or ways to slide it across the floor. So we can move the objects that are the same size that they'll be in outer space. We just can't move them in the same fashion, so we kind of have to trick the simulator to make it look like we do when we do it in space. I've spent numerous hours in training learning how to operate the space station arm. We have basic training to learn the basic concepts. We also go to Canada where the arm builders, and we spend a lot of time, a couple of weeks there, and all we do is study the robotic arm and work with it and play with it using simulations. Then we come back here to Houston and we even double that and triple that amount of training so that we really know what we're doing when we get into space.
The large blue structure in the back and on the right is the docking simulator. It requires careful skill and training when docking something as large as the International Space Station and the shuttle orbiter. Whenever you see a spacecraft on TV, it looks as if it is just floating. However, it's actually traveling at a speed of 17,500 miles per hour, roughly 5 miles per second. This concludes this portion of the tour. Follow your tour guide down the stairs and back onto the tram to resume your tour of Johnson Space Center.
On your right, this building houses a very rare and valuable collection, the world's largest collection of moon rocks. Lunar samples are preserved and stored here in special cabinets. He remembers his first thoughts upon leaving the Apollo capsule.
I came down the ladder, and I can remember as I stood on the moon trying to get my balance, just thinking what an amazing, brightly lit, flat place it was to visit. Buzz Aldrin said on Apollo 11 it was magnificent desolation. I think maybe those were beautifully chosen words.
Look up ahead, past the road for a field of rocks and sand. It's not a sandbox. Astronauts and engineers conduct training exercises in that area to prepare for working on the surfaces of the Moon and Mars. Today, NASA scientists are preparing to use the geology of the Moon to our advantage. The materials on the Moon may be used in the future for building materials, fuel, and clean oxygen. An outpost on the Moon will be like a stepping stone for missions to Mars and beyond.
Entering into the exploration era, we're looking to expand our presence in the solar system, starting with going to the moon, and be able to demonstrate our ability then to go out to Mars and other destinations. When we get to Mars, one of the things we're going to be wanting to do is mine the local materials in order to generate fuel and other materials that we'll need to support to stay and to return to Earth. So in order to enable that technology and demonstrate, we're trying to do a lot of that work on the moon and prove out that technology for a longer duration missions.
Astronaut Clay Anderson trains there. The Control Points Lab we call NBL 6.2 billion gallons. And it allows us to hop into our spacesuits and become essentially weightless underwater as we practice our spacewalk techniques for all the different tests we do on the station. In addition to that, the shuttle crews also use that facility to practice their spacewalks that they'll do while they're there. To your right is the Mission Simulation Building. It houses a motion-based simulator on the front flight deck of the space shuttle. It can be tilted up 90 degrees for launch simulations and shaken for increased realism. Space shuttle pilot Mark Kelly explains how the real thing can really shake you up. Choose the bags of the launch pad. Clock is 6 seconds before liftoff. 3 inches start, and they give you about half a thrust each. Clock it to 0, and the 2 solid rocket boosters arrive. Those are about 3 million pounds of thrust each. They go straight up, feel it kicking. All that 7.5 pounds of thrust, there's a lot of vibration. It's very obvious you're going to be going somewhere very, very fast. When he's not flying the space shuttle, Mark Kelly keeps in practice flying T-38 Talon jet trainers. With the movie Top Gun, they recognize the T-38 as the black Russian airplane. They're painted black for that movie, but that's what we use. It helps us in that just keep up our flying skills, stick and rudder skills that every pilot needs, especially when you fly the space shuttle. As you leave Space Center Houston today, you can see a couple of T-38s firsthand at Talon Park near the entrance.
Hey, go get by it. One, two, three. Wait, I gotta do. Oh my god. Alright, cool.
Like as if you know what it is. You tell me. What is it? What is it? What? What is the ball, baller? How long we talking about?